Darkest Hour, directed by Joe Wright. It's a fictionalized account of the early days of Winston Churchill in government before he became Prime Minister, as he was Prime Minister, and you've got the Nazis taking over Europe, and the film tells of his struggles fighting against his own party. It's a film, a war film that's told through the power of words, and it's a gradual build-up to that very famous speech at the end where, we will never surrender, and it is a very powerful speech, and they did it. It was it's a beautiful moment in the movie. But for me, the biggest highlight of this film, and you know what I'm going to say, and that's Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. Now, if this man does not win an Oscar for this performance, or any award for this performance, then I'm not actually sure from the top of my head, out of all the awards that we've had recently, you've actually won anything. But this man, Gary Oldman, as Winston Churchill in this movie, was absolutely amazing. Not just his performance, but the makeup. It looked amazing. It looked flawless, and even the little things he would do with his performance. Now, I don't really know a lot about Winston Churchill and his sort of personality and his character and how he would act. I only know how the man looked and the way the man walked, and Gary Oldman captures all of that brilliantly. But these little things he would do with his performance, like these little grunts, these little nuances with his performance. And it was brilliant. It really sold me that this was Winston Churchill, on the screen. He was amazing. Gary Oldman was absolutely amazing in this film, and it was all down to those little very subtle sort of things that he would do with his performance. Those very subtle sort of expressions that he would do, and sounds with his performance. It was amazing. He was absolutely great. I found this film to be a very interesting movie, because there were a lot of things that I didn't know about. How much of it is 100% true, how much of it is not. I'm not entirely sure. I really should, seeing as I am actually, I'm from the UK and I should know about all of this, really. But yeah, I found it very entertaining. The first act for me was probably the best, as in when it came to the narrative and the pacing. Then the narrative sort of started to crumble during the second and the third act. Started to get a little bit. It sort of started to collapse under itself, you could say. I'm not saying it completely sort of fell through. It sort of struggled to keep its momentum and its pacing during that second and third act, and you could see that. But it was Gary Oldman, really, and his performance that really sort of kept this film together. I would have liked to have seen them focus on a few of the other characters a little bit more, like Winston Churchill's wife and his secretary. I wish the film, because it sort of briefly touches on their characters, but it doesn't explore them as much as I really wanted the film to. So yeah, I would have liked a bit more focus on certain characters, really. But one of the things I really liked about this movie was the lighting and the colour palette that was used, and the cinematography. The colour palette is full of these dark colours like greys and blacks and all of that, and it really helps convey what these characters are going through during these times, these very dark times, and the use of the colour palette helps convey that, and it helps you immerse you into what is, these dark, very, very dark hours in British history. And I just really liked the lighting as well. And again, all of that sort of helped convey the atmosphere and the tensions that everyone was going through, and the horror and the worry that everyone was going through. And that was all helped. All of that was conveyed very nicely by the use of the colour palette and the lighting and the cinematography. There is this one beautiful scene of the king looking out to London, and he's sort of deciding whether he should go into exile to Canada or not. And it's a beautiful, beautiful moment. I also really dug Ben Mendelsohn's performance as King George. I really liked his performance. And like I said, there's that beautiful scene of him looking out into London, and it's got, those dark greys there. It almost looked like a painting, a really, really nice painting in the landscape. And it just helped convey the sort of how people were feeling during these times of sort of worry and concern and what was going to happen to their country. But yeah, I did really like Ben I'm not entirely sure you say his surname. Mendelsohn, I think it is. He was in Rogue One, and I couldn't help, when I was watching him in this film, I kept thinking of Krennic in Rogue One, because I am just like a massive Star Wars geek, and I just can't let go of things like that. But yeah, I know, I dug his performance. So a few issues, really, when it comes to the narrative, mainly during the second and third act, and the pacing is sort of slowed down, and it comes a little bit choppy. But overall, I found it to be very entertaining and interesting. But the film is sort of really held together, especially in those moments where the narrative does falter, is held together by Gary Oldman and his performance. But it's a well-made movie. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I think there are moments in the movie which could have done with a little bit more tension and suspense and build-up, maybe, especially when it comes to that very famous speech at the end. For me, it's sort of the way it was sort of played out did lack a bit of a clout that I really wanted it to, emotionally, as well as, sort of like, we're never going to surrender sort of thing. It's sort of like, even though Gary Oldman delivered it very, very good, I mean, he was brilliant in this role, I just think it sort of lacked that sort of punch that I really needed. But no, it was a well-crafted, it was an okay crafted movie, which told a very interesting story, but I think it could have gone a little bit deeper into the details. I wanted to know a little bit more about certain characters, a little bit more about what happened here, what happened there, and why he came to this decision and all of that. But overall, no, a pretty good film. I really, really enjoyed it, and I will be giving The Darkest Hour a B+. What did you guys think of The Darkest Hour? Let me know below. Did you love it or hate it? Let me know below. And again, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you like what you see and you share the same passions as me, then why not hit subscribe?